Welcome to We Chat Divorce, hosted by Karen Chellew, Legal Liaison, and Catherine Shanahan, CDFA. Each episode, we sit down with divorce professionals and industry experts to provide insights and frank discussions about real people, real situations, and real divorce to help you achieve your best life post-divorce. This episode of We Chat Divorce is brought to you by My Divorce Solution, offering divorce financial planning so clients can secure the divorce settlement they deserve. Visit mydivorcesolution.com to request access. Welcome back to We Chat Divorce, brought to you by My Divorce Solution. I'm Karen Chellew, Legal Liaison, here to help you move through the divorce process with clarity and confidence.
And I'm Catherine Shanahan, Certified Divorce Financial Analyst and your financial partner through every stage of divorce. You know, at MDS, we believe clarity is the first step to reclaiming control, especially when the divorce process feels so chaotic, which most of them do.
For sure. I'm really excited to talk with Jackie today. Her role as a divorce coach with high conflict divorce is really what we see every day, all day here at MDS. And it's nice to have this resource for them.
Yeah, she talks about Crazy Town. Is that the name of her podcast? Crazy Town? Yeah. Okay. So, gosh, I know if you're listening to this and we all believe we're dealing with narcissists, and most of us were, or are, I should say, but you do feel like you're in Crazy Town. And I think that unless you have a spouse that treats you like that, you don't really get it. Where you look so put together and you look so normal, and you know your spouse looks so normal and is so nice to the outside world, but in your head you're like, I'm freaking crazy, or he's making me feel crazy, or she's making me feel crazy, but I'm not crazy, you know. And it's so nice post-divorce, and believe me, it doesn't happen when you get your divorce decree. It could take you a couple of years where you start saying, well, wait a minute, I'm not crazy.
Right. You may be in Crazy Town, but you're not crazy. And that's really an important concept to understand. I feel like we have a lot of clients who say, you know, I believe that my case is very different from any that you've encountered, or, you know, my situation is so different. And for people to understand that, no, this situation, while yours may be unique, this whole notion of Crazy Town is real. And when you can adopt that and learn some tools to get through that, it will really help you immensely navigate your divorce process.
Oh, absolutely. You know, sometimes realizing that this crazy town isn't necessarily about you, but somebody who's driving you crazy. If you can learn to navigate that and take control over that, it will make your process a lot better. So it'll be good to have this resource for our listeners. So if you feel like you're living in crazy town, stay tuned.
Sounds good. Let's get in today's interview. Our guest today is someone who not only understands the chaos that can follow a high conflict divorce, but who has turned that experience into a powerful framework to help others rise above it. Through strategy, nervous system regulation, really, really important there, and a deep understanding of post-separation abuse, Jackie Miller teaches people how to protect their peace and move forward without getting pulled back into dysfunction. Her work is such a compliment to what we do here at MDS, because we know that you can't make smart financial decisions when you're still trapped in emotional survival. Today's conversation is all about reclaiming your clarity, your confidence, and your power. Hello, Jackie. Welcome to We Chat Divorce.
Hello, you guys. I'm so happy to be here.
We're excited too.
Yeah, really looking forward to this conversation, because your work in high conflict divorce space aligns with something we see every day at MDS. How hard it is to make clear financial decisions when someone is still being emotionally and mentally manipulated. You know, dividing emotions from making good decisions is highly challenging, as we all know. But before we get into the details, let me introduce you properly. Jackie Miller is a high conflict divorce coach and post-separation abuse strategist who helps women disentangle from toxic relationships, reclaim their energy, and stop reacting to narcissistic manipulation. Boy, that's a hard phrase to say.
Boy, you have a fun day ahead of yourself.
Oh, I know, right? Hence the yellow. Okay.
Especially inside the family court system. She's also the host of Out of Crazy Town, your guide to divorcing a narcissist and a survivor of a 16-and-a-half-year emotionally and financially abusive marriage, followed by a high conflict divorce. Jackie brings lived experience, neuroscience, and practical strategy to every client and every conversation. That's amazing.
Thank you.
So, Jackie, to start us off, we'd love to hear a little bit about your journey. We know just briefly what brought you to this work, but can you talk a little bit more about, what happened that you realized there was a path out of Crazy Town?
Yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned, I was in a marriage for 16 and a half years that I didn't know what was happening as the years went by, sort of this slow, insidious, everything from isolation to, you mentioned the financial control, which is why I love what you guys do, but I didn't understand what was happening. And I just sort of, it was my husband. And so when he told me things, I believed him, and he was a self-pronounced, expert on all the money and finances, and he knows what he's doing and I don't. And so 16 and a half years went by, and I'm the one that filed for a divorce, but it was so hard for me. And one of the reasons was I was so embarrassed to admit, even to an attorney, I did not have one account that had my name on it that we shared in 16 and a half years, not one credit card with our name on it. He insisted I do not take his last name. He insisted our children did not take his last name. It was bizarre, but he had these really amazing reasons, you guys. I know you're probably thinking, what possible amazing reason? But that's the mental mind games that they play, and they're slow and they plant seeds. And before I knew it, I was terrified to file, one, because I knew it would be war, and two, I literally had nothing. I was living in a multi-million-dollar house at the beach in one of the most expensive zip codes, driving a very expensive car. I had zero access to any money at all. And we were living this great life. And I thought, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how I'm going to get divorced. So eventually I did, when things got bad enough I couldn't stay. And when it started, I then learned about something called post-separation abuse. And when you're in a very controlling marriage or relationship and then you leave, they're going to go and find other tools to continue to exert that control. And wow, did I find out how they do that with the legal system. Financial abuse just takes on different forms. And when I got done, I thought, how are people doing this? How are women, or the outspouse? It doesn't even have to be the woman. I have clients that are men that are not the primary earners. And I don't know how they're doing this, and I have to help. And so I started a podcast, and then I decided to become a divorce coach. And here I am today, 6 years later, hundreds of women, mostly I've helped, and I do have male clients, like I said, but I had to do something, you guys, because it was so brutal.
Yeah, well, it's good that you found the strength to get out, for one. And number two, that you had the courage to go out on your own and start helping others, because it's, scary to be an entrepreneur and to not only share your story, but to let people lean on you and for you to give them guidance. So, there's always a reason for why we go through what we go through. And I guess this is your reason.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I always joke around that, when I was in first grade, I wasn't running around saying, I want to be a divorce coach when I grow up.
Yeah.
But it definitely has a lot of purpose and meaning behind it. And I love helping people. And if nothing else, just giving them the validation that they're not crazy, that, they can do this. They will make it to the other side. It will be okay. All of those things. So, super
I think
important.
that's the hardest thing, because having experience with a narcissistic spouse, you do feel crazy. You do feel like, okay, is this all created in my mind? Because on the outside world sees this person so differently because they portray themselves so differently. And then you get inside those walls or inside that car ride, and it's a whole different experience. And so I understand the crazy town, and even when I got out, it takes time to like settle your mind at okay, this is not who you are, this is not what it is, and you're just going to have to move forward because it does get worse because the stories become elaborated and made up and falsified against you. But you're just sitting there like, if I defend myself, I sound worse. So you just got to take it and not say anything and just let people. I mean, I lost friends because they believed things that weren't true, but you realize they're not really your friends at that point. But still,
Right.
you still live in that cycle. So I'm so curious to see how you are working with your clients and how long it takes them to get through that, or even to get the courage to initiate a divorce.
Sure. And I'm sure, just like you guys, I love when people come to me beforehand because I wish I had done more researched or gathered more resources. I was scared to because it felt very defiant to even research divorce. And I was terrified he would see a search or find any shred of any information that I was just planning on, leaving. But I have to meet clients where they're at. Some of them are ready to go. I'm ready to leave. Tell me what to do. I'll do all the research. Others felt like I did, where they're like, I can't do that. I can't. I'm too afraid to do that. And so then we back it up and we take even smaller baby steps to get to the goal. But you touched on something that is such a major theme in every case that I've helped with, and it's the false narratives that are installed through many times years of just repeating. Our brains love repeat, right? That's how they learn, or at least over time, it's how they will absorb information. And they're masters at that. So they'll plant seeds in front of you. They'll say things to other people. They'll make tiny comments, within earshot of you. They'll say it straight to your face. And then if you do the tiniest thing that is somewhere in the realm of that false narrative, see, I told you. And then you start to believe it yourself. And you're absolutely right. Unwinding that. I mean, I laugh now, thank God, but I just told you that his big narrative was, you can't see the tax returns. You have to sign them immediately. They're due yesterday. It's going to be your fault. We're going to get fined so much money if you don't sign it right now. No, I can't explain it to you. Our tax returns are hundreds of pages long. What am I going to do? Sit down and explain it to you? You need to sign. And this happened year after year. And I would say, I want to go to the accountant. When he met me, I was climbed the ladder in pharmaceuticals. I was like kicking butt, making a lot of money, just bought my own condo, used to do all my own taxes on purpose because I wanted to understand them. Like, I had a ton of money in my 401k. I was like crushing it. But years go by and I've been told, you're not going to get it. You're not going to understand it. I know what I'm doing. You don't know what I'm doing. You don't understand. It's too complicated. And I started to believe it. And so when the divorce happened, I was terrified because I thought this really smart financial guy is going to screw me because I don't know what I'm doing.
Mhm.
And Jackie, would you agree that if you're not prepared, the court system perpetuates that situation by tenfold?
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't. And sadly, my initial attorney, I had three, actually it was the middle one, also took advantage of that ignorance. I mean, I realize that this is an extreme case, but even he now agrees that our attorneys were colluding to get us to sell the house because we had a lot of equity. And if they could get that money in the bank immediately during the divorce, they could keep the conflict going and then just bill the crap out of us and each get, a couple million in their bank account. I actually uncovered it. Stupid me, right? Who doesn't understand anything. I was starting to slowly prove to myself that I was smart again. I uncovered the whole conspiracy of what they were doing, and I had to secretly go hire another attorney and surprise them in court with a new attorney. And his attorney literally started screaming in the courtroom when I showed up with a new attorney because her partner in crime, my old attorney, was not there to continue this, this scheme that they had going. But
Awesome. I
it
would have
is,
loved to have been in that courtroom.
Oh my
oh,
God.
my new attorney turned to me and she goes, I've been doing this a long time. I've never seen anything like this. Like she was throwing things and screaming at the judge and going, but she won't, but it's her fault. Like she didn't even know what to say. And then my old attorney, who I just fired, tried to put a lien on our house. Like it was like
Yeah.
wacky, which is
An
completely
attorney's
illegal.
lien.
Yeah, and but because we had never signed anything like that, and
Mhm.
I mean, my new attorney's just reading this lien, and then and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "It's right here. She just filed it." I'm like, "I don't know what's going on. This is crazy." She goes, "Jackie, you just blew up the
Mhm.
biggest plan that they had going to try to force you to sell the house or get you." And there's a whole nother backstory to that. I don't know how I got this tangent, but the thing, yes, if you don't do your research, have the right people in your corner, get, just find the right support team. Yeah, your journey's going to be a little rougher.
Yeah,
It's so frustrating to me to hear. Here goes my anxiety. We had a
I
lot
hear
of these.
you.
We had a lot of these kind of calls this week with some attorneys and clients that we have in common, and it's just so frustrating because you know, of course, Karen and I know the process, and you know, we know our clients' financials at that point, so we have really good insight. But I just think about the clients and all of them out there, and you were one at one time, and that are just being taken advantage of. We're talking about one case in one town in one state, in one county. Like there's millions of people that are going through this, and they just don't have the strength or the courage to question the process or fight back. I mean, thank God you were smart and you were courageous to go get a new attorney and come in with the blind side there. But it's not easy to do that because attorneys don't go like that against each other. I don't even know how you replaced one without the other one at the day of the trial. Like I never hear of that. I don't know, Karen, you have better insight here, but
Well, sometimes we have to help clients make that decision, Jackie, because we can see it from our lens. We can see what's happening. And so we do help, not all the time. Sometimes it's not an attorney issue. Sometimes the client just needs to be more prepared so the attorney can adopt their financial decisions and advocate for them. That's a very different situation than what you found yourself in. But it can happen all the time. And that's why I asked about, a lot of people, especially people in your situation, they believe that if they file for divorce, hire an attorney, they're handing the baton to someone who's going to fix things, make things better. And that is not what's going to happen if you're not prepared. And I think that's what we're all saying here today.
Absolutely. And I have to say, that journey was very difficult. It was horrible. I'll use that word. I am so glad now that I went through it. I didn't know what a K-1 was. I didn't know, that how tax returns work, that you don't actually send the supporting documents, that, maybe your accountant holds on to them. I don't know. There were so many things I didn't know. I've gotten so good that I found a client, and I don't want to put this out there and like people come to me because you guys are the experts, but I'm just going to say that my learning curve was so steep, but I finally in the end dug in and thought, I have to be the expert in my case. What I realized was my attorney is a tool. My attorney is not the expert in my case, believe it or not. They are the expert when they have to be for the few minutes they get on the phone with me, or they're, the day or two they're in front of the judge. I'm the one that has to be the expert on everything. I need to know it inside out. And I hunkered down and I studied everything I could. I was up out pulling all-nighters, finding all of his LLCs and hidden ones and companies he had in Australia and all this stuff. And I had to figure it out for myself. And I'm so glad I did because I feel so confident now as an entrepreneur, as just someone out in the world doing my own taxes, trying to grow my business. The silver lining is all of that has actually helped me in my new life, my new amazing life, by the way. And I want people to hear that because that is a possibility for you. If you're listening to this podcast and you are terrified and you're devastated and you've convinced yourself that they're going to leave you with nothing and because you don't know what you're doing, it is possible. You're going to hunker down. You're going to learn. You're smart. You are smart. You're very smart and you can do it. And that's where I was. And I'm glad I had to go through and learn all that stuff.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, the MDS method is that, helping clients be educated in the know so that when they're making their decisions, they're making it from their knowledge about the financial impact and they're confident in that space. And so then when they're doing that, they also need a divorce coach. So I want to circle back to what you provide to your clients relative to post-separation abuse and understanding the science behind it. Can you talk about that? So while clients are preparing and getting in the know, it doesn't mean that they're not going through that abuse and it's still very traumatic. So how do you kind of handle both sides?
Sure. Well, I'm my passion is kind of science, and it's what I studied even in college, and so it's kind of funny that it's coming full circle into divorce coaching, but it's very relevant because one of the first things I talk to about clients is what exactly they're up to. So when they get that 7-page threatening email, when they get those crazy accusations that are completely untrue, there's a goal behind all of them. And the goal is to keep you spinning. The goal is to keep you in fight or flight. The goal is to keep, because your brain does not work when you're having high anxiety. At least it doesn't work as well. In fact, it's not supposed to. And I let them know your body's doing exactly what it's designed to do. When you see something that looks like a threat, it's your body's job to shut down all the systems that it doesn't need, hyper focus on the problem, and start predicting all the horrible things that might happen, because its job is to protect you and to anticipate any other thing that might be coming down the pike. You need to realize that there is a dynamic at play here. Their goal, again, is to keep you spinning, keep you afraid, so that you can't operate, so that you can't hunker down and look, say, okay, I'm going to sit down today and figure out these financials, or at least try to understand them, or at least write down questions, so that when I meet with you guys, or my attorney, I have some thoughtful, inquisitive, conversation we can have where I can learn. They don't want you in that space, because then you gain power, you gain knowledge, and you might come back in your divorce case with some rational approaches to how you might settle. And then they lose a little bit of control. So understanding what's going on, and just the fact that that 7-page email is just designed to keep you spinning, those crazy false accusations, those "I'm going to leave you with nothing," as much as scary as it is, because you think they might be smarter at what they're doing, take a deep breath and then go ask your experts. Can they really leave me with nothing? Well, no, of course they can't. You've been married 25 years and, you have 3 homes, and no, they can't leave you with nothing. It's just designed to keep you spiraling. So I like to educate people on what's happening with their bodies, and why this person who had control for so many years is now losing control, and they're just going to start firing off anything to keep you entangled, keep you ensnared, keep you spinning. That's the goal, and that's kind of the science behind it. And understanding it, I believe, is the first step.
Yeah. We have a new client, and right after she hired us, because we'll invite the spouses to participate if they'd like to participate. And he didn't want to participate well, he still doesn't want to, but immediately he was like, no. He went to an attorney, didn't hire the attorney apparently, but the attorney, I guess not being hired, sent a letter to our client, and she doesn't have an attorney yet. He just blindsided her and says, you don't need MDS. Here's the proposal. And if you don't sign by, it was like 10 days later, we're going to go to litigation. Meanwhile, he never filed yet, right? So she calls in a panic. She's like totally panicked. So I said, we can't give you legal advice, but send us the letter and we'll let you know if there's a deadline that you have to go get an attorney immediately to go file. So we get the letter, and it's just basically a threat. It was really, like, to your point, to keep her spinning, because she has a spinning type of personality. Like, she's just right. She was blindsided and she just wants what's best, and she doesn't want to spend a lot of money in the court system and blah, blah, blah. So she's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And now all of a sudden, spouse will get on the phone with us. So Karen speaks to the spouse. She has a decent conversation with him. Immediately she's panicked again, because he's like, I'm not working with them, blah, blah, blah. So she calls, and I get on with her, and he's there laughing. I'm not giving documents. We don't need documents. You know what we have. Just take my offer, blah, blah, blah. I said, he can laugh all he wants. That's his opinion. And his numbers could be accurate, but we just need to verify the numbers with the documents, unless you don't want to verify them. No, 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 I'm fine. Well, here, fast forward, I just spoke to her the other day. Now, all of a sudden, he says he's going to file. Now, all of a sudden, he sends her a message. What about an uncontested divorce? Can we go to mediation? So their stories change along the way when they're not
Uh-huh.
getting what they want from you. And she's even saying and she's only in the beginning of our process. So she's not even halfway through yet, but she already feels better. She already feels like, I don't have to succumb to these threats I'm getting, and I'm just going to take my time getting the financial clarity I need. And whether he wants to wait for me or not, that's up to him. And I was like, wow, I'm so proud of you. Good for you. And she said, but I wouldn't have done it if I haven't talked to MDS, because it gave me some kind of outlook on where I'm supposed to be going next. Right. And so it's really rewarding that we have a process that you don't have to be controlled by somebody else's threats.
Oh, I heard you say this once on a podcast, Catherine, and so I'm just going to say it again. I wish I had you guys before I even consulted an attorney before I went through my divorce. And again, if you're listening to this because you are dealing with somebody like, my ex or who we're talking about, do not fire MDS. Do not get rid of them. One of the first moves your ex, soon to be ex, and their attorney is going to make is try to dismantle your support system. So when they see somebody like you guys coming, yeah, he's like, oh shit, excuse my language, like the experts on finances and divorce, like they're going to try to scare you and keep her spinning. And like you said, and I've seen them many times try to get rid of attorneys. We can do this without attorneys. We don't need an attorney. Listen to me. You're not an expert in finances. And I'm going to say that to the right most, because that's why people are listening to this podcast. You have to get an expert to help you through this process. Divorce is mostly financial. Yes, of course, there's the kid component. It's financial or it's kids. Attorneys aren't experts in finances. Shocked as I was to learn that after 3 attorneys, even my great attorney at the end, it's not what they do, which is mind blowing because they're divorce attorneys, but they have no clue. I'm sorry, attorneys. They have no clue. Please hire MDS. It's you have to have a financial expert if you want to feel good about your settlement at the end, at least knowing that you did all you could.
Mm-hmm.
That is, thank you, Jackie, for saying that and for realizing it, because it is really the foundational decision. A lot of people say, well, or the attorneys will say, well, hire a forensic. Well, that's a very nuanced opinion that you're going to be getting, but it's not going to help you understand your marital estate. It may give you a business valuation. It may do a lot of things, but I think people don't realize that. And they don't realize that their attorneys not only are not financial experts, they're also not business experts. They're also not real estate experts. They're not also estate planning experts. And a lot of people completely miss that family law is very specific to navigating the divorce process, not necessarily understanding all of the complexity of your assets and debts.
Absolutely. And oh boy, don't get me started on forensics.
I know.
We spent probably more on forensics, which I'm sure does not surprise you guys. I think that it is such a misnomer. I know that the word forensic just means for court, that they can testify in court. I think if you're like me and you've seen every single episode of Forensic Files, you think that it means you're going to find a financial fingerprint that no one else found and be able to tie it back to your ex, and there's a pile of money in an offshore account somewhere. That is not what they do. They will take your $50,000 retainer. They'll send a list of 8 million things they need. And again, I'm not knocking them, because when they're needed, they're needed in very, very complicated cases. However, they're going to call you in a couple of weeks and tell you they need another 50 grand because they got all the information. They put it in a spreadsheet, and that's how far they got. They put it in a spreadsheet because that takes a lot of hours. And you're like, but what'd you find? Well, nothing yet. We have a new list of new items that we need now, and we need another 50 grand. So that is what happened in my case. We each had our own forensics. Mine did nothing for my case, and I'm not even bashing them. It,
Mhm.
they did nothing for my case, and I mean hundreds and hundreds of thousands of
You're not
dollars.
alone because you don't even know what the scope of what you hired them for. And that's the problem. We've seen plenty of forensic reports, and I totally agree. There is a need for a forensic accountant, but it's in very few cases, or I should say, few percentages of the cases out there. But the people that are hiring them, and you get the report back, it's like a glorifying checking rebalancing account that you don't need a forensic for. And you say, what are you doing with this data now? We don't know. Or what was the scope? Well, I'm not sure. My attorney just said I needed this one, and this is the one my attorney wanted. And so it's so frustrating. I mean, we were on a call this week with the forensic, and Karen knew more about the case than the forensic knew. And I looked at her literally through the camera, if she could have felt me staring at her, like, are you effing kidding me? Like, are you kidding me? And so what is the forensic being paid for? I just couldn't believe it without
Yeah.
getting detailed to that. It kept me up at night again.
Yeah, it
No,
did because you couldn't sleep last night.
I just
you're
couldn't sleep because I'm so frustrated by that.
Yeah, I get the same way. And I had a client the other day whose case was very, I can say this to you guys because if you've been through enough cases, yes, they had maybe a lot of accounts and retirement accounts and this and that, but that doesn't make it complicated. Just because you own a couple homes and you have a number of retirement accounts and, there's that's actually not financially complicated. Even if he is doing a little freelance, if he's the earner and he's got a W-2, that's still not complicated. But attorneys, because they don't know, immediately want to pass all that off to somebody. And their answer is forensic accountant. And so I had a client that said, okay, so my attorney wants to hire a forensic. And I said, why? I'm
Mhm.
just so confused. Well, she said they need to, gather all the information and put it together. I said, not a forensic accountant. Do you know how much they cost? And do you know what they do? Like, what would be the goal, to your point? Ask your attorney specifically what exactly is the goal of the
Mhm.
forensic. What are they going to do? Is there somebody else less expensive that can do this sort of bookkeeping stuff? I don't understand it all. And you're not, I said, I can tell you, I can put all my money here on bet it on red. You're not going to trial. Forensic means they can testify. That's all it means.
Mhm.
Why
Mhm.
are you getting a forensic account? And she was like, I don't know. I don't, but you're right. They just do this knee jerk. Let's hand it off to a forensic. And it sounds so sexy and glamorous. And I have a
It's
forensic on my case that's going to take care of everything and figure it all out. And it's not what they do.
Mhm.
No.
Well, you know what? To the point, I don't defend attorneys a lot, but here I'll credit it. If you go into your attorney and you say, my spouse is hiding money and they've been diverting money because it's an assumption I have because it's a controlling situation, and you say that to your attorney, yes, their response for their due diligence is going to be, well, you need a forensic to do that. So that's why we preach all day, every day, get prepared first. Because when you come through our process, we're going to be able to really see if you need a forensic or not. And we're going to be able to give you the questions to ask your attorney. What would be the result of getting a forensic? Like, will I be able to even claw back any of that money that I think I'm going to find? Because sometimes people come in, it's been 20 years ago or 10 years ago. Those cases don't get to claw back that money that I ever get to see. But so for us, it's about getting prepared, know what's missing, know where you should avoid a rabbit hole, or maybe you should go down a rabbit hole. It's your choice when you have all the data that's in front of you and all the data that we think is missing to then decide. So then you have an intelligent conversation with your attorney by saying X, Y, and Z instead of being so emotionally charged. And then you'll have a better outcome, actually.
You're right. And just to validate your point, I came to my attorney with that thing. He's been audited by the IRS 7 times. They never found anything, but why do you keep getting audited? He always he tells me how he's screwing people. He tells me, he got drunk and told the neighbor the other day, asked him some really shady offshore money hidden account questions. So yes, of course, she's like, oh, crap, we need to hire a forensic. So based off what
Yeah.
I told her, you're absolutely right. Now, I wish I had you guys again because you would have said, okay, great, hold on. But let's again, I had no idea the scope. I just kept going, they need more lists. They have more stuff. They need more stuff from him. They need more stuff from him. We don't have it all yet. Now we have more questions. We have more questions. I never once said, what is the point of all this?
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's so true. And you're there with your emotional um, concerns, right? That is very upsetting. And it's your attorney's job then to respond to that. And they have a malpractice license to protect. They have rules and procedures they have to follow all day long. And to Catherine's point, not only do we give you questions, we get on the phone with your attorney and ask very specific leading questions so that you can hear the answer. So that if you believe your concern is, oh, he was audited, or, oh, I think that he was spending money for the past 10 years, I will ask, or one of our legal liaisons will ask, well, attorney, how far will you go back? What is this going to cost? Is this something that our client should be spending money on? Because I see these other issues where there's really legitimate value here that would be better, the money would be better spent here. So maybe we should go after that first, and everybody gets on the same page. And then the client is learning and rooting themselves in that knowledge so that they can make really good decisions going forward.
Absolutely. And something else, I loved your guys' opinion on this that I found, and I tell my clients is you need to really get clear on even just your monthly spending. You need to get really clear on what it costs you to live right now, what you think it even might cost you in the future. And because if this spirals out of control forever, like mine was, and the money is just flying out the window, and you at some point just have to ask yourself, what do I need? Let's forget what there is. Let's forget what there is. What do you need? What does your future look like? And that is something as a divorce coach, I will ask people like, let's just stop and take a break for a minute. Where do you want your life? Like 2 years from, let's go 2 years. 2 years from now, what does it look like? And they're like, oh my God, I have no idea. I haven't thought about it. I'm too busy doing this. So let's talk about it, because if you don't know where you're headed, how can we plan for that? How can you even settle without a goal in mind? And so it's really sort of an aha moment for a lot of clients, because they're like, wow, well, I'd like to at least maybe be living in a condo here or here, or, whatever. And I really don't care if it's something very small, or I want something, whatever. And it starts just the juices flowing of thinking about your future rather than being constantly tangled up in all this drama and chaos and the high anxiety stuff. So that's just a really important thing I think that clients need to do, is think about their future, like have fun thinking about it.
Yeah. 150%. That's one of, after our clients upload their data and the documentation that they have available to them, that is the very next step. Let's go through your expenses, the way you lived your lifestyle, and how you're living now, and what you hope to be, right? It's three different views. And most of the time, Jackie, people are very tentative. First of all, I have to hear a lot of confessions. Right. Oh my gosh, I spent a lot of money on shoes. I'm so embarrassed. Whatever it may be, it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. To your point, how have you been living, and what do you hope to continue? What are your goals? And then that is a wonderful platform to move off from. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
our second phase. And then after that phase is our third phase, where we go through division scenarios. So that's for your assets and debts. So when we go through the division scenarios, it is sure you want to keep this house, which most women want to. Okay, well, what are you negotiating a way to keep that house? And what will your future look like if you're starting over to save for retirement? And what repairs are needed on your house? And what's the cost of that? And where's the money you're going to get that from? And then why don't you take an exercise? Where would you live if you didn't keep the house? And at our next meeting, we'll talk about that, because how will that affect your budget or your lifestyle analysis that you did in the previous step? And so we have an A scenario, B scenario, and sometimes a C scenario, so that nobody ever gets their best scenario. So sometimes you want that middle of the road, the one that you're a little uncomfortable with, but you'll live with. So then when you go to your attorney, you can say, these are my scenarios, or you go to mediation, which we're so for if you're prepared. then you know what you're negotiating and you're not making knee-jerk reactions to anything because you are financially prepared. And we also mark what's missing. So you can go to mediation and say, okay, I can agree to this if he can give me or she can give me these documents to verify it. So you're going there asking really educated questions, not emotionally charged, saying he's lying about that or she's lying about that. We're actually asking for a piece of information to verify. So you look really smart when you're doing that.
That is amazing. I wish that I had 2 or 3 scenarios that I had gone into my mediation with. And I agree. I am somebody, some people say like, oh, you can't mediate with, somebody who's pathological or a narcissist or whatever. And I get that. Sometimes their need for control is so bad, so strong that they take it all the way through court and you end up with no choice. However, I firmly believe that if you can get mediation, if you have you guys MDS, and you go in with some scenarios, you get to look at those scenarios and sort of get used to them. Like like you said, you look at them, can I live like this? And then a couple that you sleep on it and you're like, you know what, I can. The other reason I would have loved that is when I got to that point where I'm like, this is going to go on forever. He's really good. He is really good at not turning over any financial information. He's really good at handing us boxes of papers that we have to scan in. And then he says, I already gave you that. And we said, no, you didn't. Yes, it was. It was in the box. And then there's a month of emails back and forth of, no, you didn't. Yes, you did. No, you didn't. Yes, you did. And then I get a $10,000 bill from my attorney because they were doing the no, you didn't. Yes, you did. And I'm like, he's actually kind of getting away with this. And so I said to myself, I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, you want out. You want to wait so far away from this, but you've got to live on something. You need to get whatever there is and you need to go. And it's not him winning. In fact, you saying tangled up in this, he's winning. You think that you're getting somewhere by continuing to have your forensic ask for more information, continuing to dig, continuing to have the businesses evaluated and reevaluated, to continue. And he's got an excuse at every turn. And it's been 2.5 years. And in that moment, I had to redefine what winning is. And it's, again, something I talk to my clients about. And I had to decide what winning is me moving on with my life, taking whatever I could get and moving on. But if I had had a couple of really well thought out financial scenarios that professionals have put together for me that I had had some time to think about before I went into that mediation, I would have felt a whole lot better going in and a whole lot better coming out. And so I just really applaud you guys for what you're doing because I did make the right decision because winning was moving on with my life, spending all my energy on me, not on that.
That is a good win for sure. And excuse me, lost my voice here. That is a great win. And also it's a great win that you get to share with your clients, which, if you're listening, I know it's scary. I know it's scary to make that decision to move on with your life and try to make the rest of your life the best of your life. But to have Jackie as a resource could be so helpful to you to get that courage. And of course, when you come through our process and get financially prepared, they could bring that to you as well. So you can help talk them through the confidence to use that information with their next professional. So our services actually go hand in hand. But none of us here take it for granted on how courageous you have to be to move forward. So hopefully you'll listen to this podcast and share it with others that you may know, because we all know somebody who's just scared to make that next move. And also send us comments if you want us to continue this conversation, because Karen and I could talk to you for a very long time, Jackie.
Oh, for sure.
For sure.
For sure. You guys, I mean, I really do mean it. I wish I had you. I cannot, you're going to be bombarded with people that I send you, honestly, because you should be the first step before you even speak to an attorney. I firmly believe that. Even if there's a big custody component, I get that. And so you do need to talk to an attorney about that. But divorce is financial. In fact, when you legally separate, what do? You still separate the finances. And so it's all about separating the finances, and you just need to cover your butt, and you are not an expert. So hire experts to help you. I'm so passionate about it. As you can tell from my journey and what I went through, you can see why.
Yeah.
But it would have made a big difference.
Well, we commend you for taking all of that energy and paying it forward to so many people who will benefit from that. So thank you, Jackie.
Oh,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
joining us. You're doing such important work. So can we talk a little bit about where people can find you and learn more about you and your podcast and make the connection with you?
Absolutely. So my website is jackiemillercoaching.com. And then a lot of my podcast, as you mentioned, is called Out of Crazy Town. And a lot of my social media you can find through Out of Crazy Town. So Instagram is Out of Crazy Town, YouTube's Out of Crazy Town. Just punch that in if you're looking on any of the podcast platforms as well, if you want to listen to the podcast. And I just thank you for those kind words. I feel very passionate about what I do. And again, I just really want people to know it is going to be okay. And you really, really can have the best chapter of your life ahead of you, 100%. And I truly mean that.
Well, thank you for saying that. And thank you for having that opportunity for people going through the divorce process. And for those of you listening, visit us at mydivorcesolution.com to learn how the MDS Financial Portrait helps you prepare strategically, gain clarity, and protect your financial future. Jackie said it's step 1. We've kind of taken on the notion that it's step 0.
Absolutely. That's well said. It sure is.
So don't forget to like, comment, and share this episode. Until next time, take a breath, protect your power, and let knowledge be your strength.
I love it. Protect your power. So true. So nice to meet you, ladies. Thank you for having me.
You as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of We Chat Divorce. We hope this episode was informative and supportive on your divorce journey. If you're looking for more support for navigating divorce with confidence and clarity, head over to mydivorcesolution.com for more podcast episodes, divorce events, and resources for your divorce. We'll see you back here for our next episode.